Hello and welcome. Another edition of our Thursday Coaches Corner, where each and every Thursday, Coach Dave Serrano and myself spend some time with college coaches from around the country, all levels, all divisions, and we try to gain some insight for both families as well as prospective student athletes. And today we're going to get an opportunity to speak with a well seasoned coach who is now beginning his new phase of his coaching career at the University of Michigan, assistant coach Tyson Neal. Coach, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. And I'd love to start and kind of gain your perspective. You've been in this coaching world for over almost, I think, 20 years now with regard to college coaching. Let's talk a little bit about your opportunity now with Coach Smith at Michigan. What are some of the things you're hitting the ground running with as far as recruiting and just getting an overall a sense of what University of Michigan baseball is all about?
Well, I appreciate it. The big thing is just the people, and I'll probably say that word quite a bit in our discussion. One, you know, my family and I were very thankful for this opportunity. I'm very thankful for Coach Smith. He's been a mentor of mine back to my pitching days under him at Miami University and his family. Um, but just getting to know the people. For me, baseball is baseball. It's a beautiful game. Um, but now it's all right. How can I find a way to settle in here at the University of Michigan? And again, back to getting to know the roster, getting to obviously spending a lot of downtime with the coaching staff and the support staff, and then here's a small little nugget that a lot may not know. So Dr. Ono is the president of the University of Michigan. He was the president of the University of Cincinnati and hired me at the University of Cincinnati. So even to be able to, and he and I have kept in touch over time since both of our days at UC, and just even reconnecting with him. And it's just a wonderful opportunity. I was able to take my first recruiting trip over the weekend. Saw a lot of junior college guys and a lot of high school guys, and my blood was flowing and with excitement to be on the road again and finding Wolverines.
I think a lot of families don't take enough time to understand the history and tradition with regard to Michigan baseball. Only a few years ago, Michigan was in the College World Series against Vanderbilt. But when we talk University of Michigan, obviously we think of the Big House and the Fab Four and the basketball and the football. But baseball has a very, very storied history and past at the University of Michigan. What does it take, or what makes it so special, in your opinion, with regard to the University of Michigan about the opportunity to be a student athlete there?
Well, it's a world class institution academically. The campus is beautiful. It is a Big Ten institution when it comes to athletically for our student athletes. The resources here, the support staff, the people, the high level administration, the high level coaches that we're able to attract here. I spent the 8 years at Indiana in the Big Ten and loved every second of it. And it was awesome. I started my family there, and I took my wife and my daughter to this, I am going to circle back to the Big House and the football, but I took my wife and my daughter to that Texas game 2 Saturdays ago, and I'd never have had to wait 45 minutes to use the men's room. And that's a byproduct of 110,000 people in there pulling for the maize and blue. Unbelievable experience, and just it's the Big Ten. There's a reason when with the way the college athletics is going here, the transformational approach that the University of Michigan is using. Just a very storied national brand and back to the world class institution. And I think what it's still going to come back to, the people here are still going to make or break this place, and the people in place, just very fortunate. I feel very fortunate, and I've been a few places, and I feel extremely um, fortunate to be here at the University of Michigan.
Well, obviously, you have some history with regard to Big Ten baseball, but things are changing. Conference realignment, schools coming in, such as USC and UCLA. Also, I believe Oregon and Washington. So, talk a little bit about that Big Ten tradition with regard to baseball. We're really taking the Big Ten conference and putting it smack dab in the middle of the SEC, ACC, as far as with regard to the talent pool and the expectations of the baseball programs at the Big Ten schools?
Well, I think it's becoming, overnight, more of a national brand with adding the West Coast schools. Very, very good programs. Those four you mentioned from the West Coast. Very good coaches, very good people at those institutions as well. And we've tried to, obviously, if you look at our roster, and we want to have a presence on the West Coast, and we want to have a national brand, and these schools joining us from the West Coast is going to allow that. They're going to identify more with the University of Michigan, because USC or UCLA may be in their backyard. What a neat opportunity! I always say, as a student athlete and as a coach, the old lingo of baseball has been good to me, very, very good to me. But I've seen the whole country because of the sport of baseball, and I think it's going to allow our student athletes the opportunity to see more of the United States. And who knows, they may find their favorite town, their favorite city, their favorite college town, um, along the way, and just these life memories and exposure to different things. I think that's what baseball does for us. It's an international brand, and we're doing it at a smaller level here at the University of Michigan and the Big Ten. And now you add Big Ten is kind of a buffer between the Midwest old Big Ten and now more of a national scene. And it's just an exciting time to be a part of this.
Yeah, you actually go East Coast at Penn State and Rutgers, all the way over to UCLA and USC, and obviously Pacific Northwest, Oregon, and Washington, and all of the states in the Midwest, Minnesota, Indiana, and obviously Michigan. I would love to kind of get our discussion, your background as a former college pitcher and a head coach and assistant coach with regard to pitching. This is really a hot topic. We literally see social media upside down and sideways talking about velo programs, plyo balls. We have guys taking athletes taking pitching lessons 12 months a year. I would love to start our discussion with regard to youth pitching. Give me your idea of what a college pitcher must have in order to become a Division I caliber pitcher, meaning what type of physical attributes, and I guess we'll ask about metrics, does it take to get on the radar at the University of Michigan?
Well, number one, it's the root of your question is you have to be healthy. That's the first thing. You have to you have to be healthy. And you have to be able to maintain your health, and you got to get on the field to develop. And that's what I always go back to. I've always had a knack for keeping guys on the mound, and that's the only way you get better, by throwing a baseball in the outfield, in the bullpen, or on the game mound. And as far as what does it take, what does it look like, and that's the thing. I think it's important that you ask that, because I think a lot of families in high school are asking, what do college coaches look for? What do college coaches look for? And I know what they need to be asking themselves is, what does it look like?
Bingo.
What does it look like to pitch at the University of Michigan? What does it look like to pitch at a Division II school? What does it look like to pitch at all these good programs at different levels? And it goes back to one, health. And I've always kept it pretty simple. And in the times where baseball's changing a little bit, evolving with some metrics and different lingo and different ways to evaluate a fastball. You got to be able to do three things. You got to throw two pitches off the same arm slot in the zone. You've got to be able to field your position. And you have to be able to control the running game. And I've always kept it that simple. And there's nuances that fall off for each one of those three things. But if you're a high school guy that maybe lacks some control or command of the fastball and that second pitch is inconsistent, you're going to find yourself frustrated at the end of the day that your phone's not ringing. And chasing velocity is awesome, right? We want to maximize our potential. We want to find ways to throw. I use the example, the Olympics are the Olympics for a reason. Those are world-class athletes, right? So not everyone is physically capable of being in the Olympics. Otherwise, it wouldn't be so elite. All of us have some type of ceiling, if you will. And I think finding a way to reach that ceiling is important. But once you get there, all right, that's my physical ceiling of maybe how hard I can throw a baseball. But now, can I do those other things? Now, can I go back to, and I've got two boys in high school, and it's, what are you doing to help your team win? Can you help your team win? If you're the starting pitcher, can you help your team win? It's a team sport. That is what should be happening.
The big thing that we talk about with health is how to stay healthy.
Yeah.
So if you have, as a dad, we're both dads of pitchers.
Yeah.
I will tell you and ask your opinion on this. I was never a big fan of a 12-month throwing cycle. My boys, when they were younger, naturally just went to other sports, and kind of did their football thing or their basketball thing. And it really wasn't until the junior year in high school where Tyler began to kind of focus a little bit more in. But can you just talk about the keys to arm health? What are some of the routines that you might suggest in order to maintain a healthy arm?
One, I think it's way more controllable than we realize. Routines should be communication. It should be rest. It should be recovery. It should be an adult looking out for you. A lot of controllables, I think. And as far as, a teenager maintaining a 12 to 18-year-old maintaining arm health, I think it's all of those things. And just getting specific now to the physiology, the anatomy of things, allowing your body to be as natural as possible. I'm seeing a lot of in the, maybe in the private sector or, which are all unbelievable resources for these athletes. But anytime someone's encouraging you to do a forced movement, that's something that's unnatural for your body, then you're subjecting yourself to a potential flaw, if you will, in your throwing mechanics, which leads to injury potentially. So I just to keep it in layman's terms, are you moving naturally? Or is there a forced movement in there? And, a forced movement could be telling a young man to do something a little bit different with his glove side. Or
Bingo. Right.
And my, in my 18 years of not ever losing a guy to Tommy John surgery at the college level, I have not one time messed with someone's arm action. And it's just, one, you don't have to, and two, I'm not sure you should, but just getting with someone that has a feel of how the body moves, and then surround yourself with people with, as I say, good people that are going to look out for you. Hey, this 13-year-old just threw 50 pitches on Thursday. He does not need to bounce back and start the championship game on Sunday.
Right.
Someone needs to speak up and say, no, this young man has already thrown this weekend and he can throw next Thursday.
So it's important for parents to speak up, if there's a
100%.
communication. And I think some parents are afraid, and they put a lot of trust in other people. Oh, he's got a rubber arm and things of that nature. So would you encourage parents to be, involved or engaged with regard to, hey, look, he just started a game on Wednesday, threw 80 pitches. He's probably not able to throw a bullpen inning on Saturday or Friday, which happens a lot.
The conversation needs to happen when the commitment to play for that team or to pitch for that team. That's when the conversation needs to happen. That's where the boundaries need to be set. And it can be an adult, mature conversation with no emotions, because it's not during a game or right after a game or right before a game. That's not the time for it. So it is. My questions are always for my boys: is do you have my son's going to be able to help you on the mound? Do you have enough pitchers? Or you're going to be asking more of my son than he needs to be throwing? Those are real conversations that should be happening. And if the answer is yes, and then the next question is, what if it's a weekend where you've got a couple of young men out of town for vacations, and you're going to get to the championship game, and my son's already thrown? What does that look like? Well, we're going to no. Then that's when you need to walk away from that. Honestly, that meaningless summer ball tournament, and those. And it sounds a little petty, but those are the conversations that should happen. And the other part of that is, are we going to go by pitch count or by innings? Okay, he only threw one inning on Friday. Yeah, but the inning, it took him 35 pitches to get out of the inning.
Well, can you talk about that? Like, there's a stress inning and then there's an inning, because this is where parents, like, I'll always tell parents, if your son came into a bases loaded, nobody out situation and threw 21 pitches and got out of that,
yeah,
that's a stress inning. That's a high stress inning.
Yes.
As opposed to going in for an inning and nobody out, nobody on, and he throws 18 pitches. One is not the same as the other. But
Yes.
parents would love to hear this perspective from a college coach.
That's an extremely pressure situation, and every 21 pitches that he threw are stressful to the mind, to the body. And yeah, that's a big inning. That's a heavy workload on a young man. That's a heavy workload that's a heavy workload on a 25-year-old in the big leagues.
Right.
And that, I always go back to, if you watch the big leagues, and it's not fair to compare the starters in the big leagues to the starters at the youth level, because they're on 5 or 6 day rotation or whatever. But these bullpen guys in the big leagues, not one bullpen guy in the big leagues is being handled or mishandled like these kids are being handled in youth baseball. They're not. And there's a reason they're not, because the body and the arm can't handle it, and it shouldn't handle it. So we could go obviously a lot of passion. I was a pitcher that had minor arm issues, and it sparked, kind of your past leads you to your path. And I fought tooth and nail for 18 years to keep my guys healthy, and I succeeded. And it was, but it's a lot of communication, and it's a lot of, I don't want to say I cared more than any other coach. That's not fair for me to say, but it's a passion of mine, and you have to look at it from every angle. Like last week, we had a pitcher here at the University of Michigan. I noticed he started coughing. And I've got it right now. The early signs of your immune system dropping, right?
Yep.
And you're on the verge of getting sick. I went straight to Coach Brock, our pitching guy, and said, "Hey, let's look out for this young man. He's on the verge of maybe potentially being sick and the immune system down." That's an early, and this is, I'm giving you the secret sauce here of all those years. I knew what these guys were doing every day, and I was around them every day, and I knew the signs to look out for, that, hey, this young man he doesn't need the day off. He just maybe needs a lighter day, or let's make sure he's getting his rest tonight, or, hey, do you need any help with anything academically? Because that all, compounds and leads to, oh, he's worn down. He's not just worn down on his arm, his whole body's worn down. He's not going to recover from his last outing as quick because his whole body is worn down. And those are the things that are just as important as the next bullpen he throws.
Well, what my takeaways here are this, and I think this is a tremendous message, and I want to emphasize this. At no point are we as parents, and obviously with Coach Neal as a parent and a coach, are we talking about being confrontational? We're talking about
Right.
being, observe, listen and watch your student athlete's body, his movement patterns. Is there an onset of a cold which will lead to fatigue throughout the body, not just the arm? If it's sore, that's a kind of a horn, so to speak, like honk honk. We got a little issue here, and to monitor that. And I think the takeaway phrase there is the past. It's your kind of your guide to your path,
Yep.
and I think that is tremendous knowledge. And one of the things that I would like to kind of go back to, because I think it's really critical now with my boys, with pertaining to trying to find natural arm path. And I would love for you to expand on this, because as a dad, I was also a college coach. And so my college pitchers, I would always take them out to shortstop and just kind of hit them some ground balls. And, I would see, okay, well, that's their natural arm path. And I would say to my sons, hey, we don't need to worry about this get over the top thing. Let's see the natural path. So if you could explain that for parents in your whatever you think is the appropriate pathway to that. But parents have no idea, what is my son's natural arm path and how do I find that? So if you could expand on anything differently than I was doing, that would be great.
I joke with my wife all the time. So Facebook might be a more of a valuable asset to this question than you realize, because there's the memories that pop up on Facebook, right?
Right.
And my wife is the Facebook. She's like, well, this is how we're keeping our memories, and it pops up. My point in that is where I'm going. There's going to be tomorrow a memory of me playing catch with my son in the backyard when he's 5 years old. And you know how much instruction he's had as a 5-year-old, as a kid, he's had zero,
Right.
right?
Bingo.
So
Bingo.
so the way your kid throws at 4, 5, 6, 7 years old is his natural way of throwing. And that's what he needs to get back to. That's what it looks like. And you use the example of rolling the balls to your guys as athletes, as shortstops, or rolling it to their backhand. That's real stuff, and that will give you. There's no time to think when you field a ground ball and throw it across. Whether you're a pitcher, a shortstop, an athlete, an outfielder, there's no time to think about throwing mechanics or what I need to do here or there. No, you feel the ball and you throw it and you get rid of it. That's probably, unless you've picked up an extremely bad habit along the way, that's probably as natural as you're going to be. And that's what it should look like. And that's what it takes. And so it's funny. All these years I've done pitching lessons as a college coach. Every college coach has some type of, especially back in 20 years ago when
Right.
the money's not what it is now. Right.
Right.
And I've done pitching lessons for the past 20 years. And not one time in a pitching lesson have I put a young man on the mound.
Oh, please expand on that. Please. Please. This needs to be heard.
Yeah. No one. I spent my whole time getting them back to who they were, more natural. And point being, if you go to someone new, if you work on something brand new, you have to learn it in the backyard before you apply it, where you're using all this energy and force off of a mound. And master it in the backyard. After you master it in the backyard at 45 to 60 feet, and then master it in the bullpen. And then after you master it in the bullpen, and that's where you take it to the game mound. And point being is, I felt like I don't want to use the word fix, but I felt like I spent all those years trying to fix young men, of getting them to just be athletes and throw the ball naturally. And there aren't they were throwing lessons. Hey,
Bingo.
yeah,
Bingo.
they're throwing lessons, and then you just happen to throw off of the mound with a little bit of a decline and throw the ball downhill, and we try and make this a little harder than it is. I think I hate to say that, but um, we really do.
I think you nailed that. I mean, I'm a byproduct. I played baseball when dinosaurs roamed the earth. I'm
Yeah,
61 years old, and I can vividly remember Rick Wise. He played for the Cardinals, the Brewers, the Red Sox. But Rick Wise used to always say, "I play catch, and I play competitive catch, and I have a small target and small misses, and then that translates when I go out to the mound." And when I try to tell parents, it's as simple as that. uh, they look at me like, well, what about radar guns and analytics and vertical and horizontal? And the hitter will tell you if whatever you're doing is working. The hitter's feedback is more valuable than the radar gun. And so Ty,
and real
I,
quick, I'm sorry.
yeah,
I was talking this past week, and I was talking to a scout on my recruiting trip, and back to and those are the one of the things that I'm really excited about, of just the relationships that I've built throughout the years as a college coach, and as in this small baseball fraternity, of just revisiting. And so point being is, we were on the conversation came up about, our radar guns juiced? Our radar guns the same as they used to be? And then we went into, well, everyone's training harder, and everybody's shooting for velocity. So it all kind of just adds up to where maybe the radar guns are the same. It's maybe just the lingo. And then I started thinking, and I was like, you know what? I pitched as a kid in high school, and then I was a college guy. I didn't, I had no opportunities after college. And I said, to this day, when I was pitching, no one ever said, throw this pitch as hard as you can. Or I
right,
never told myself, all right, now throw this pitch as hard as you can. Like, so had I thrown more pitches as hard as I could, maybe my velocity would have shown higher, right? But I was always, go help your team win.
bingo,
Throw this pitch where you want to, and let the hitter get himself out. Like, or let's speed him up and slow him down, and let's sequence and strategize. That stuff's always been around, but um, the old spin rate fastball nowadays, that was the grease spot fastball when I was started
right,
recruiting. It's like, oh, did you see that fastball get about halfway and then all of a sudden take off and explode by the hitter? Yeah, that's spin rate.
right.
That it used to be the grease spot fastball. Anyway, the game's the same. As you can tell, I have a lot of passion for this, and a lot of passion for pitching. And there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with the game right now. The game is as beautiful as it's ever been, and in fact, it's better.
I
With all
agree.
this training, and the athletes are bigger and faster and stronger, and um, but there's these little nuance, and I don't think the radar guns are different. I think now all these pitchers are trained to throw every pitch as hard as they can, and they are showing more velocity than we did, because I was never taught to throw the ball as hard as I could.
Well, I think it's important for this type of discussion to be had. I think it's helpful for parents. I think it's helpful for student athletes. And my last question, I really would love for you to kind of provide your insight with regard to, the changes that are coming. The recruiting changes are good for the sport of baseball collectively as a whole, not just Division 1. And when I try to have this discussion with parents, I find that parents and student athletes are still stuck in that mindset of, well, this guy already committed and that guy already committed. And I try to get them to understand, don't chase someone else's path, choose your own. But in today's recruiting environment, and you're active and involved and engaged with that today at Michigan, what advice would you give to student athletes and parents with regard to, hey, things are just slower, but slower is actually good because it helps everyone develop and be prepared to be recruited? What advice would you give to families?
Well, I'm gonna pretend that I'm talking to my 16 to soon to be 17-year-old son in my own home. These are our conversations. Have you fallen in love with the game yet?
Bingo.
And Dad, I want this, I want that. And I'm like, have you fallen in love with the game yet? What do you mean by that? Well, do you love the game of baseball? Is this something you really want to pursue? Yeah. Well, no, you don't, because you're not asking enough questions. You're not doing enough extra work. You're not paying enough attention to your body. All the things. So fall in love with the game, one, and then that will encourage you to work harder. That will encourage you to look in the mirror and say, where are my deficiencies? That will encourage you to work on your mobility. That will encourage you to show up for early work. That will encourage you to run on and off the field with a smile on your face on game day and practice day. That will encourage you to ask for extra work. That will encourage you to seek out better nutrition, better sleep, better eating habits, better strength and conditioning habits. So those are the conversations. And just in the past 3 months, our son has done that. Dad help me, dad help me. No, you need to figure out how important this is to you, and then within our means and within what we feel is necessary, we are going to help you. And I would not speak any differently to any other family or any other young man. And you know a caveat into that, with the current situation with roster, all of that, now speaking to Division I baseball, I think we're at a little bit of a standstill on what that's actually going to look like. And I think each institution is a little bit at a standstill of, the old, is this 40-man roster going to, in fact, be pushed down to 35? If so, when is it going to happen? Is it going to be a cold turkey 40 to 35? Is it going to be a gradual decline of 40 to 38 to 36 to 34 over the course of 4 years? No one really, really knows yet. So in the meantime, you as a student athlete, prospective student athlete in high school, and you as a parent have no control over it. We as college coaches have no control over it. So let's all control the things that we can control in the meantime. And if I'm a high school baseball player, I'm deciding how much this game really means to me. And then if it means a lot to me, then I'm maximizing every opportunity there. And quite frankly, a lot of it is you need to get in the weight room. You need to get more physical. I loved your conversation with Coach Corbin the other day of, the mind drives the body. What are you doing to strengthen your mind? What are you doing to learn more about the game? What are you doing to make sure you're taking care of your body and all of those things, and I just watched, probably I was there all day Friday, all day Saturday, and all day Sunday. I probably, how it's going, and there's 4 games going on at once. I probably saw 100 teams this weekend, and I didn't see many young men running off the field, on and off the field with a smile on their face.
Bingo.
I didn't. And then all of a sudden, and I've got it. We had our first week of practice here at the University of Michigan. We practice 6 days a week for 3 hours at this level. And not to mention they're lifting in the morning before class, and they go to class all day. And the studying in the evenings. So if you can't grind through a 7-inning game and have some fun and some passion and get on and off the field, and man, I don't know if this college game's is going to work out for you. It is it is awesome. It's awesome, but it is a grind, and you need to learn. That's what I'm going back to. I'm talking to my own son right now. You need to learn how to embrace the grind and how fun it is, and learn to get up when you get knocked down, and you need to get used to being told no. That's life. And all of the above. And back to a lot of the conversations I've heard you had on here with other coaches, that is going to establish who you are when it's time to be a grown up, as a family man, as an employee, as a professional baseball player. Those are the ones that make it.
Isn't that what it's all about? I
Yes.
mean, this is so I try to tell everyone that will listen, okay, I'm a baseball fan. I love the sport. I loved it as a player, a coach, a dad watching. But you're going to be a former player for a lot longer period of time. You're going to be a dad. You're going to be a husband. You're going to be an employee or an employer. And all of the mental lessons, the physical lessons, the failure and the response to failure are going to carry you into your adulthood in all of those facets of life, way off the playing field. So I'm so glad that you were able to verbally convey for parents and student athletes. That is a huge message, and I think it's critical for parents to hear it from the college coaches, because they're the ones who kind of drive this bus, good, bad, or indifferent. So, Ty, I've been a fan of yours, but this I would venture to say is a top 5 conversation for me. I think we
Oh,
were
thank you.
able to offer families and athletes great perspective, great information, and insight. So, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you for having me, Walter. It was anytime I get a chance to. I have, as you can. There's so much passion. Nobody. I promise you, there's not one college baseball coach in the country right now that is smiling more than I am right now. I promise you that, and such a passion for this game and helping guide and lead these young men and these families. But thank you for giving me the platform to talk about it.
Absolutely. And I want parents and athletes to understand, not only if you're looking to contact Coach Neal directly or Coach Smith at the University of Michigan, but the Baseball Blue Book app has every single camp that Michigan offers, all of their information to their social media, their schedules, their rosters. So if you haven't done so already, I highly encourage you, go to the Google or Apple app stores, download the Blue Book, put in your profile, connect with Coach Neal, and we'll have all that information in our description, both in the podcast and the YouTube. And Coach, thank you so much and have a great fall.
Thank you, Walter. I will. Thank you.